Hello, everybody. This is Al Stash, and over here is Sid Pert. How you doing, Sid?
I am just simply fantastic.
Excellent, excellent. Let me put my microphone on so we got sound on me too. How you doing today, Sid?
We're doing good. In fact, I like to say, as long as I got vertical in the morning,
Yeah,
that I am still here.
you're still
And,
here. That's right.
At the fact that I've been around as long as I have, it makes me feel good to think that I can get up. I do make a bet with myself. I was going to say I make a book with myself, but we
Yeah.
don't do that anymore.
Uh-huh.
And say, where is the pain going to hurt this morning?
Uh-huh.
And of course, quite often at my pill shelf, it looks like a drugstore.
We got to get you off that mode there,
But
Sid.
that goes with the territory. You see, this is what you've got to look forward to, Al, when you get up to be about 90 plus.
I'm not looking forward to that. Not looking forward to all that medicine. I don't like to take medicine at all. Hey, listen, we had an election. Did you go vote?
I voted early.
What do you mean you voted early?
Well, I voted instead of going to the regular precinct on election day. I went to not York. I went up to an early vote,
You voted early. Okay.
so that I could say, "Hey, I carried my little I voted sign for a week,
Yeah? You happy with the results?
relatively."
Relatively. That means you got some that you voted for and some that you didn't.
Yeah, that's about it.
All right. All right. Well, let's tell everybody who was elected here in Villa Park. Do you remember?
Yeah,
president.
Al Bolthouse was.
Balthus, yeah. Al
wa-
Balthus.
was elected as our new village president,
Right.
president of the board. I had it written down somewhere.
I'll tell you the trustees. Nick Cazone, who was an
Yes.
incumbent, he got reelected. Bob Wagner was
Yeah.
reelected. He's trustee. And then
Cheryl well,
Tucker
Tucker.
is a new trustee. She won the third seat. And now, because Bob Taglia ran in his the end of his trustee term for village president, that is now a vacant seat. And that will be something. I'm sorry, Cheryl Tucker got that seat.
No,
Al Bolthus is the vacant seat, so it's less than 2 years, and he will be assigning a fourth trustee to the village board. So we'll have two new and two incumbents that are going to be continuing to serve on the board.
Would you like to go on the board, Al?
No, would you?
I've been there,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, as sometimes I like to think, a lot of people don't, but I like to think I've got more common sense than the majority. I don't have book learning.
Where'd you come up with that common sense?
Actually, the Lincoln head coins.
Okay. Okay. Well, you served when? When were you trustee?
I was a trustee in '89 to '93.
What'd you do? Anything good?
Oh, did I ever?
What's that?
In '87, we had a big, heavy rainstorm, flooded out the village.
Right.
And of course, the village is all around us.
Right.
And somewhere around 1990, 1991, the county decided they would take a survey on Sugar Creek and to see what they could do to do it. And Lombard would contribute 50,000, Villa Parker would contribute 50,000, Elmhurst would contribute 50,000, and the county would contribute 100,000
Just for the study.
just for the study.
Okay.
And I came up, and with them when they came in addressing it, well, I was unhappy because they showed us a drainage map of the South Village,
Yeah.
and they had a drainage course in there that was in a 52-inch sewer and had been for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, what was the 50,000, 50,000, what was that for?
That was pay for the study of Sugar Creek.
And what did they find out? That it
Well,
floods.
when this is where I'm getting to. This is story is long. You got to go along with it.
Well, you got to keep it short. We only have an hour.
Well, okay. Well, I'll cut it down then. I told the engineers that came there from the county, I said, well, if you take a look, you just have to take a look at the records that Sugar Creek, the village, dropped the bed of Sugar Creek something like 4 to 6 inches.
Now you're
for
saying Sugar
flooding.
Creek, so help people so they don't get confused. Salt or Sugar Creek?
Sugar Creek runs through the village golf course,
Okay,
runs through the south side of town, originates up in Lombard.
okay.
Lombard itself had put in a couple of retention ponds. We had put in big culverts under the under Villa, Summit, and Ardmore, so that the water could get through. And I said, if you guys would really know anything, or did really come into this a little more prepared, you would know that the reason that Salt Creek, or that our Salt Creek Golf, excuse me, our Sugar Creek Golf
I did that
course,
to you, sorry.
our Sugar Creek Golf Course went underwater for the simple reason that Salt Creek was so high, it formed a dam and backed the water up. Sure, it was flowing, but very slowly. A lot more was coming in to the Salt Creek area, or Sugar Creek area, that was coming out. And what they, I convinced my trustees about that we would not go with it, so that killed the project. But we know that shortly after that, the county acquired the Elmhurst Chicago Stone Quarry, and then in the course of time has converted that to a water retention pond, and they can put an awful lot of Salt Creek water in that. And this, I think it was 2 years ago, was it, that we had a tremendous rain. The water in Sugar Creek went up, covered up the first fairway that I did take a look, covered the 7th green. That was at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock that afternoon, the water had all gone down.
Well, how does that affect residents, Sugar Creek?
How does that affect the residents? Well, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have basements flooding from the creek.
Because of this new
We
retention
have-
that's in Elmhurst Quarry?
The quarry,
That affected, before that there was flooding in those areas?
yes,
In basements?
there
yeah.
could have been, yeah.
Yeah,
back
I know
then.
it's intermittent that happens now, that it's not so regular that that area, which is not Salt Creek, Sugar Creek, that
Sugar
runs
Creek.
through town, does have some basement flooding. And Salt Creek is still an issue for a lot of people in terms of being on a floodplain for flood water. But that brings up another point about this last election, and that is there was a sales tax increase of 0.5% that takes the sales tax here in Villa Park.
That was a good transition.
Yeah,
From
because
Sugar Creek is
because it means something to sewer systems, and that is that the 0.5% sales tax is going to be applied to underground sewage systems that affect our flooding and also our sanitary sewers. And 0.5% was added. It was before it was 7.75% for most merchandise. Now it's going to be 8.25%, and that gives us the opportunity to use that money for underground sewer systems, which, you know, overland flooding in the creeks is one thing, but we've got a lot of issues with storms and sanitary sewers that are still tied together, so that people, when there's flooding, when the system is overtaken by a amount of rainwater, ends up having sanitary sewer product in their basement, which is just simply horrible. So thank God we passed that, because now these people in the future will get some relief in terms of backup sewer systems that is tied together with the sanitary and flood systems.
back from 1949 to around 1980, or 78, I think it was. I lived on South Wisconsin.
Yeah.
My address at the time was 649. My in-laws had the house at 648. In fact, we lived with them back for about 8 years. We bought the house across the street. Well, we had put in 2 sump pumps in the basement and pumped the water into the backyard.
Yeah.
And so that the basements did not flood.
Yeah.
Except one time in '74, one of the kids somehow, I have no idea how they did it, we got a tennis ball into the sump.
Pipe.
Yeah, and it blocked the outflow. So I had about, I think it was a foot of water in the basement that time.
I went through that when I was a kid in Bensonville. We had a lot of flooding in our basement, it's a lot higher than a foot. But one of the things that you mentioned, sump pumps, that came up in a recent incident with the fire department, and people should, who have sump pumps, I don't have one in my house, but people who do have sump pumps should really take a look at the sump pump that you have in the house. Make sure that it's operating efficiently and it's not getting weaker and weaker, because what can happen is sump pumps can overheat and cause a fire. So make sure you have at least a smoke detector in the area of your sump pump, because they can fail, and if they fail and cause a fire, you might not know about it. So make sure you check your sump pump, just like you check your chimney and all the other things during the spring season when water levels start to increase. The other thing that happened in the election was, or the ballot, was the library referendum, and that passed as well. So we had a discussion at the village board meeting. We, the trustees and the staff, had a discussion about where we're headed now with the library, and that is a planning period where they really flesh out what they're going to do in terms of the improvements and the fixes at the library. Not only the infrastructure, the heating and roof and all the other things that have deteriorated over the years, but also there's going to be an addition and a swap of the parking lot. A lot of people are familiar with the Villa Park Library. You know that you park generally on the south end of the library, which is between the florist, Ardmore Florist, and the library. And there is a parking lot on the north end. But that north end parking lot is designated for St. Alexander's Parish, which is a church and rectory and buildings just east of the library. Well, we're going to swap parking lots so that the parking lot on the south side will become St. A's parking, and the parking lot on the north side will become library parking. And some of the improvements will go in that direction towards and actually there's a residence just beyond that parking lot that's part of the library system, and they're going to work that into the plan as well. So what do you think of the library being passed?
Oh, I'm so happy that passed. The library is such an adjunct to education. And recreation. You can get novels and that type of thing. And now, of course, they've gone way beyond me with the services that they offer.
Some of the computer stuff, yeah. Well, they are doing their best to keep up with everything that's going on in terms of electronic texts and books and documents and everything else. Years ago, there was always a salesman coming around your door with a library of encyclopedias that he wanted to sell you. Encyclopedia Britannica was one of them, and there were others. You still have encyclopedias in the house, Sid?
No, I have a children's encyclopedia that I got from, I think it was Reader's Digest or something that they put out in it. And I am in the market for a new dictionary, the bigger ones, not the great big ones, but because the one I have is probably 20, 25 years old.
Yeah, a lot of different words have been added since then.
There have been a few. They haven't added all the words that I have used that we can't use on television.
We won't talk about those. But hey, some people say that a normal adult will use at most 500 words in their writing and talking. Do you believe that?
That sounds, I would say that's pretty high. That's
pretty high, you think? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of words that, when you write out a letter or you write out a document, there's a lot of words that are different there. But I've always wanted to be in the mode where, when I was a kid growing up, coming through school, there was always this pattern where you said you had vocabulary words for the week going through school. And there'd be words that sometimes you knew, but it was mostly how do you spell them and also the definition and how you use them. So you'd have to use them in a sentence. Remember that exercise in school? And that's gone by the wayside. A lot of people don't have in school nowadays the emphasis on spelling. And I've noticed that in my children even, and in my grandchildren, that spelling is more of a challenge for them than it was for us. And some of the words that in English that just don't make sense in terms of how they're spelled are the tough ones, like receipt and things like that, where the rules change based upon the word, not the rules of the order of letters. And that has become an issue with a lot of people in terms of spelling and things like that. But the other thing is, the encyclopedias, for those that don't know that are watching us, that encyclopedias were at least 26 books because there was a book for each letter. Some were combined, but there were addendums to that. So that if you were looking something up that began with the letter A, like aardvark, for example, probably the first thing on the encyclopedia, you would have to grab the A book. And if you're looking up something about gardening, you'd have to grab the book that had the letter G on the binder. So it was a search engine that said, look at the binder edge and find it, and that was the way you did it. And then you'd look for the page alphabetically in the book. Those books had to be updated because things changed. So it was a circular sales system for those encyclopedia salespeople, because they could say after 2-3 years, do you realize that your books are outdated?
And sell a new set.
And so you had a whole new set, not just the books that needed to be changed, just a whole new set. So I do have still a copy of, I think, most of an encyclopedia set down in the basement. It's stored down there. Hasn't been opened for years. And why? Because your phone, your computer has more information than any encyclopedia set could ever have.
I know I don't do this because there's reasons. Probably I'm too lazy now to accept the fact that I've seen Al. I've said something, in fact, on our radio show, our DJ show. I've said, Al, I need this song, and I'm going to have to go and look in used record companies. And I said it was Pretend by Tab Smith. In a minute, he had that playing on his cell phone.
Yeah, do you mean this one?
Holy mackerel, was I impressed.
Yeah, but you know what that brings up to discussion is the whole idea of who owns information like that. And it's really a problem with software on computers. That's one thing. People like to share software, which is bad. That's pirating of software, but and totally illegal. And I don't do it. Just there are so many options otherwise that you don't need to pirate software anymore. And I'm not saying that because I'm a programmer. It's just the rules. But when you get into things like songs and books and photos and videos, movies, a lot is shared out on the web, and places like YouTube that we use a lot. We have more than 550 videos of our programs and other things that we do here in the village on YouTube, but those are not copyrighted or protected in any way because we're a public group. But when people put their music out there, a band or something like that, like a performer that we just talked about, it becomes available once it's out on the web, and a lot of people share that stuff. And they don't get the royalties or the benefit of having done that performance in a lot of cases. And I think that's bad. That's the one bad thing about having so much information out there, is that people just don't care about the benefit that people should be getting for their work.
I have to completely agree. I had a friend, or a person that was working with, had wanted us to, I did some recording for him. And this is in the days when, you did wax and tape.
Yeah.
In fact, tape first came out. And he had a record store, and he was, when the tapes come out, he got himself a record player, and he was copying records and sound on the tape and selling them. And he says, boy, you can do it. We can make a big bundle. And I said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was a month later that he was in jail
Yeah.
for just cheating. I think he did some time.
That's terrible. Yeah. Yeah. That can happen. Well, you know,
And that was back in the 50s.
yeah, yeah, 50s. Well, there's a lot of things out there that should be shared. It's generally referred to as public domain, or there's another word for it. I'll think in a second. But for example, anything that's done by a federal employee that is done in the normal duties that they perform as a federal employee, and they make it public, is in the public domain.
Okay.
So, for example, photos, you were a Navy man, photos on the aircraft. If your buddy took a picture of you on the aircraft and put it out on the internet, he didn't at that time, but today, put it out on the internet, that would immediately become public domain. That's actually in the copyright law, the first paragraph. And that's a benefit because things like NASA, all the work that NASA does for photos and educational things, become immediately available to public schools and education facilities and the general public. Things
Well,
like
the reason is, part of the reason is that we pay for it
true.
We
That's
have
part of
paid
the
for
reason. That's part of the reason.
as tax-supported.
Yeah, tax-supported product, right? And then there are other aspects of the copyright law that are unique, and that is that the copyright law changed over time. It was adapted. Congress made different rules, and the copyright laws are not only national but international. There's different rules for that, and things like the old programs that came out when movies were first movies, and in a playhouse and or theater, and music and television programs on the first years that they went out there, those had to be definitively copyrighted. They weren't automatically copyrighted because someone did it and should get benefit from it. So the old programs, like some of the Andy Griffith shows, Bonanza, things like that were in the 50s and 60s and some 70s, were not automatically copyrighted. And sometime in the 70s, they made a new copyright law that said, okay, all of you producers and actors, etc., that own the rights to, you think you own the rights to, you produce this, you have to say, this episode, this year, I copyright it. And proof that, you know, you have a reason to copyright it. And then it became copyrighted. Well, they missed a whole bunch of them. Maybe intentionally, sometimes not. So when you talk about your friend that wanted to put together a library of music and get benefit and sell it, there are companies that do that today. For example, Time Warner will have a set of old programs that you'll find in a DVD set in like Best Buy or somewhere else that is a product of these materials that were not copyrighted. Okay, they were in the public domain because they default were in the public domain. So they go and they grab them all up and they put them into a new set and they make a slight change. They add some value to it. And then they copyright their product so that those materials with either a little watermark at the bottom corner of the show or some summary of the show or some host introduces the show, then it becomes copyrighted. But the original show was not. And there's all kinds of things that are out there in the public domain. It's called the Internet Archive, and I take advantage of that because it's great. The other thing is people can say, I put that in the public domain. I am not going to claim any benefit from this. I want everybody to share it. And there's something called common something else that people can do where it says, I'll put it out there, but just give me some credit. You know, just tell people that I did that. You can use it however you want. There's music, there's videos, there's talk shows like this one. There's photographs, all kinds of things. And I do that with all of the photos that I've taken for the Village of Villa Park. I put them out there and they're in the public domain. Well, here's the drawback to that. I keep seeing some of the photos I've done of politicians being used against them. Deb Conroy, for example, has pointed out, and I saw it before she pointed out, that a photo that I took of her at a SALT meeting at the Wildwood Community Center is being used frequently by her opponents whenever they talk about her. It just appeared 2 days ago in the same photo that was taken years ago, just appeared 2 days ago in Facebook when they were talking about the claim, proven or not, probably not proven, that she was tied with the leadership in the Democratic Party in Springfield, therefore she didn't have any original thoughts. And a picture I took was put up there and used for that. So there's some drawback to that. You can't control how it's used, but you get a lot of information out there that people can share. And I, in spite of that, I still like the fact that we share all this stuff we do. We've got tens of thousands of photos that people can use out there, and I hope you don't use them for things like that in the future. But,
well, you know, like an old radio program back that I remember from growing up, Scattergood Baines, I think his name was.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said, well, there's good and bad in everything.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Well, you know, you talked about briefly the fact that you do a DJ show. And the DJ rules are a little bit different in that if you are a DJ at a non-commercial event, you can play songs without having royalties paid to the group. If you're a DJ on a radio station, much, much different, because that's a commercial venture, and you're getting advertising and some benefit from playing the songs of other people. So when you do your radio or your TV DJ show, let's put it that way, you are playing songs that were done by artists in the 70s and the 80s and the 50s and 40s and 30s. Some of those are still copyrighted, but you are playing as a DJ on a not-profit, no admission. You don't have to pay to watch your show. It's not on a commercial channel, so you have fair use.
Well, not only is it that we make no money from it, it costs us all our expenses that we play, if there are some, are paid by each and every one of us.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But Al has spent, I don't know how much money, of his own money, in doing our studio and getting equipment that brings us up to, a commercial grade.
Yeah.
Of,
Slowly.
Some of it is, well, there's some stuff that's old that the sound is not as great as I would like it, but he's done everything that we can. I hate to have to build him up when he's so close to me, but
yeah. So stop.
I don't, and at my age, I don't have to suck up to him.
That's right. You don't. I respect you. You don't have to do anything for me. Hey, listen, I just wanted to get back to the sales tax for a second. That was about an hour ago we started talking about that. But I wanted to point out where this money goes. Sales tax. Now, this is not tax when you're at the fuel pump. That's a motor vehicle tax. That's totally separate. This is sales tax like when you go to a store and you buy merchandise, whether it's food or a product or things like that. And sales tax in Illinois starts out only at 5.25%. That is what goes directly to the state of Illinois. Then there is a couple of other additions to that, and that's where the village of Villa Park gets money, just like all the other towns. And they are called the village share, which we add 1%, so now it's 6.25%. And then there's a non-home rule addition. Was 0.5%. Now it's going to be 1%. So we are going to get 2% of the 8.25% that's applied to most merchandise that's sold in Villa Park. 2%. 5.25% goes to the state of Illinois, and an additional 0.75%, 0.75%, goes to the Regional Transportation Authority, which is the bus system in our town that goes down Madison, I believe. That's the one route that goes to town. Washington and Madison, yeah. So in the past, if you add up those numbers, it used to be 7.75%. Now it is 8.25% because we added 0.5% sales tax. And that money is earmarked, which means intended to go towards underground sewer systems. But that is up to the boards and the trustees going forward, how they use that money. It is not by referendum, as I understand it, in law for underground sewers. It is a sales tax referendum for the village of Villa Park. You agree?
And they have sold us on the idea that 0.5% was going to be used for the infrastructure, which it's still, especially the older part of town, is very, very heavily, very necessary, very needed. When, and I'll be probably, at any rate, when the village was first put down and developed, starting to be developed.
You were here. No, you weren't.
Not quite.
Okay.
Close.
Close.
And at that time, it was very, combined sewers were fine. Because there was on Wisconsin Avenue, the 600 block was completely developed. The 700 block was still in, part of it was an orchard, part of a
Open fields.
Yeah, and the outside, the east side, was completely open. There was no houses.
Yeah.
And that was our spot.
Right. Right. So there wasn't that volume that we have now
Yeah.
with some of the apartment complexes like Ovaltine and High Point Tower up on Ardmore and new ones coming, and the commercial.
When I was a kid and we first moved into Villa Park, we moved into Harvard Avenue, 645. I'll have to talk to those people pretty soon, sometime soon. And there was 4 houses I think we were 645, the last of the 600 block. There's 4 houses down, going down north. Right at Washington, there were 2 houses, and that was the extent of the houses on that street. Across the street in the 700 block was farmland, was an old orchard.
Yeah.
Old apple orchard.
Yeah. Yeah. So things change, and that means that infrastructure has to be constantly modified, changed, rebuilt. You remember years ago, we did not have the same water system. We had our own well system for our water towers. And that changed in the 80s, 90s, when Lake Michigan water was brought through not only our town, but many towns east and west of us, through the city of Chicago. That's now part of the DuPage Water Commission. And we end up paying now for water, not only to the DuPage Water Commission, but eventually to the city of Chicago, because they provide the water. It's added value to be distributed by the DuPage County and then to us. So that all has changed, but we still have pumps that are sitting there as standby that we're maintaining from the old pump systems. Because
I think there's 2 wells, isn't it?
At least 2. I think there's maybe 3, but one may have been closed off because it wasn't serviceable. But yeah, we still have those 3, and we had older water filtration systems, like the one on the west end or east end of Ovaltine. There's a water treatment facility.
That's what they call the wet weather treatment plant.
Yeah.
And that treats stormwater.
Yeah.
And gives it a primary treatment. It's, I think it was done, I hope my figures are right. I think they said it was, its capacity was 25 million gallons of water a day. And I remember going through that and being told, in the storm time we did 40,000.
Yeah.
And what we do is we put a primary water treatment back into the creek, and sludge goes over to is piped over to the sanitary district.
Right. Which Dennis, our co-host, is a trustee.
Yeah, and along that line, when I got very interested in village government, there was one guy running. I think he was elected the first time, but saying that wet weather treatment plant wasn't the wet weather treatment, that was a sewage plant.
Uh-huh.
And he was giving us false information. Of course, that's political. We get so much false information that that's another story.
That is a total another story. In fact, a big article or write-up on CNN today just on that topic at the federal level, and we'll just leave it at that. But I wanted to tell you about a couple of things I've been doing lately, because I've been busy. I said, I've been busy. And
I know you don't answer your phone all the time.
I don't have time to answer your calls. But the Fire Corps, I want to tell you about Fire Corps, because this is cool. there is several groups here in the village of Villa Park and surrounding communities throughout the country, actually, that are there, especially during this time of the year, to help our first responders being police, fire, and paramedic units. And those people, and public works in a lot of cases, those people are on standby now during this season and summer because of the potential for storms and the likelihood that someday we're going to be overwhelmed by needs of the community when our resources are limited. For example, if a high wind or tornado comes through this area, chances are it's not going to just drop into Villa Park, get up and go on and leave. So when we talk about the fact that our first responders have mutual aid agreements with all of the surrounding communities, so whenever we need help, Addison, Lombard, York Center, Elmhurst, Oak Brook Terrace will come and help us. That is not the case in a storm situation because traditionally a storm handles or manages to affect a wide area. So even those towns that I just mentioned will have their own resources needs and will be strapped for people to help. So a couple of things take place. First of all, and it's not very widely known, but Neighborhood Watch is the first level, and that is people in each of the blocks or several blocks that are there to watch out for each other so that should there be a need, they can help each other. They know who their neighbors are. They know who needs help in a situation where we're all challenged, and they are the first level. Then there's another group called the Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, C-E-R-T, like the breath med. And that is a group of trained people who went to specific training to help in catastrophes, disasters. When a catastrophe is declared, whether it's a storm-related or an accident or a terrorist attack, everybody likes to talk about that. Doesn't happen. Let's hope. Those kinds of things. Then this CERT team can be used, and they're generally people in the community that have special training to be involved with the police department in traffic control, in doing searches of buildings that were damaged and helping triage victims, all kinds of things that they're trained to do. They, including me, I'm one of those. And so is Hosanna Korniecki, our clerk, for example, and many other people in Villa Park. And then there is another new group that we're just getting started called the Fire Corps. And that group is at a peer level with Neighborhood Watch and CERT, and Fire Corps is relatively new in Villa Park. It's a group of people that are here to help with things like wires down. And if you think about it, we have lots of trees in Villa Park, and we're a tree town. We've been recognized for that for years. Those trees fall in the wind, and branches get broken off and fall on power lines a lot, and the fire department has to respond to that. When they do, the wind doesn't, as we said, like a tornado, drop down in Villa Park, come back up and go somewhere else and not hit our surrounding communities. It traditionally hits surrounding communities as well. So what does that mean? Well, each of the fire departments will go check a wire down to see where the hazards are. And if there are hazards that need to be addressed by them, they will stand by and wait until ComEd arrives, commercial power vendors, to take care of the problem. Either turn off the power to that line, or fix it, remove the branch, et cetera, all the things that you need to do to make that safe. Well, that means that we have to leave fire department personnel on that spot for an extended period of time. What happens if there's another wire down? Traditionally there are more than a handful that come down almost simultaneously, and they all have to be checked. They can definitely cause structure fires. They can definitely cause injuries to individuals, death to individuals. Electric on the ground is nothing to mess with. So one of the tasks of this fire corps is to be those wire down monitors, get special training so that we can protect people, protect property when it is declared that there's nothing immediate hazard, but it still needs to be monitored, and the fire department needs to go somewhere else, either to another wire down or a real fire or an emergency in terms of medical assistance for the paramedics.
Al, can I ask you
Yeah.
this? Are you trained and do you have tools to handle that wire, to a live wire?
Okay, and let me answer that by saying, yes, we are trained not to touch it, not to go near.
You don't have something to say.
The only people, including residents, no one is trained. Fire department does not touch down wires. The only
Okay.
people that do are the Commonwealth Edison.
Okay.
Period. No one should. And if you think it's just a phone wire, consider this. You see the phone wire or the cable wire down, and you may know that it's a phone or cable wire, and you go to touch it. Here's the problem. You don't know if that phone wire or cable wire has been compromised by crossing it up with a power line 100 feet down. It could be live. It could be energized with electric power that will kill you. So even if you think it's a phone wire, you see it as a drop. Drop meaning from the pole in the back of your house to your house. And you say, oh, that's my phone line. I don't care. I'll check it. I'll take care of it. Don't do it. Because any copper wire can be electric potential and cause serious injury. So no one is trained to go and touch or remove that. In fact, there's rules that say if it's on the ground over there, don't go within 30 feet of it because the ground can electrocute you from moisture on the ground from where that wire is down to you. Go ahead. You're going to ask something else.
Well, the civilian emergency response team,
Yeah.
do they act? I know. I thought that years ago when it was first come out, and I went through it.
Yeah.
And
Citizens Corps, right.
yeah, and it would sort of act like in the cases of tornadoes, a big tornado, windstorm of almost hurricane force, that if you were safe, and to a degree, you were safe and your house was okay, and you went down to your neighbors and walked down to the neighbors to see if they were, and you could make a list of, okay, this house is okay, this got injuries, this got, somebody died in there, and on. You do that?
Yes, there's
They still do that.
there's search protocols. There's actually a configuration. We saw it in Hurricane Katrina on a lot of the news broadcasts, where people doing searches of houses. That was a flood situation, but same thing if there's a disaster. Doing searches of houses would draw a coordinate, 4-quadrant pattern on the front door.
Yeah, well,
Actually painted on there.
we had a couple of our own policemen volunteered for a couple of weeks down in the
Yes,
aftermath of
yes.
Katrina.
Bill Lyons was one of them. I remember him
Yeah.
talking about that. But yes, we are trained to do that. Here's the point, though. We don't, just like you said, you're right. The first thing is, are you safe? Is your family safe? That's what all CERT people are trained to do. Make sure you're safe to do anything. Then when you go to do anything, you do so under the direction of the Villa Park Police Department or other emergency responders. Maybe the village manager, the village president, or somebody that's in command and control of the situation. So we don't act on our own. And we want to do that way because people need to monitor where we are, what we're doing.
Yeah, but there
So
would
we're
be,
safe.
there might not even be, in the case of things like Katrina, there was no emergency responders. I mean, not no, but there was nowhere near enough.
That's why we're there.
and,
but they still report it
yeah.
to some authority.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But we won't have enough of the authority to serve everybody. They have to circulate. That's what we're doing to help them.
That's why these groups are here. And the fire corps is a little bit different because, like I said, wire down is not a catastrophe. That's going to happen. We know that's going to happen this year. It's already happened several times. 2 garages were burned and a fence on the south end of town a couple of weeks ago already. And we're not even into the real storm-heavy seasons. But fire corps does other things that are not emergency related. So it's a day-to-day or week-by-week, month-by-month operation. And one of them is to check all of the addresses in town on the houses and on the businesses. There is an ordinance that says you must have an address on your front of your house so that if you call 911, the first thing they ask you is, what's your address? Well, in order to find you, you have to have the address on the house. And people think, well, no, my neighbor's got their address, so it's okay. Not the case, not the case. So one of the things that we're planning on doing is going around as fire corps, not fire personnel, fire corps, and surveying blocks. I've done this already in my neighborhood. I did 270 houses and checked what kind of numbering do they have on the house. And the rules are you have to have something that's in contrast to the paint of your house so you can see it. It has to be suitable size. It cannot be script. It has to be numbers. It can't be blocked by trees or bushes. And it has to be viewable from the street. Okay? So all of those things are necessary. Why is that important? Again, you call 911 because someone's sick or someone needs emergency help, heart attack, your house is on fire. They'll see if your house is on fire, but if there's someone sick, the paramedics have to go down your block to find out where you are. Okay? If you don't have an address on your house, that just takes more time for them to figure out, okay, this is that, that's that, this, that. Go knock on your door. Did you call? That's time wasted that we don't want to waste for real emergencies. And in fact, the police department does that automatically. They'll hear that fire call and they will go check the address and kind of guide the fire department to that location. Same thing with the police department. They don't know if there's no number on the house, if that's the actual house. Okay? So we're going to go around and check that, and if we find anything that's wrong, that doesn't apply properly to the ordinance, then we will get that to the fire department. They will check only those houses, those that we identified, and then follow up the way they should. Okay? And other things like getting funds for the fire department, including grants from the Fire Corps qualified groups. This is a national organization. We're going to find ways to get money to them to support what they need that they can't get in their normal budget or their normal grant system. Like we got a fire engine through a grant. You know, we're not going to get them fire engines, but some of the smaller stuff that's important to what they do. Okay? What do you think? You want to join?
I certainly do.
You should. No, we'll get you there. All right. A couple other things, and I'm going to come to you in a second. I want to mention that there are some new things coming up this April. April 22nd is a cleanup of the Great Western Trail. I mentioned the Neighborhood Watch Group. I'm a Neighborhood Watch captain for all of Kenilworth. Used to be called Main Street, remember? You told me that. All of Kenilworth from Villa all the way to the end that is dead end before it gets into Lombard. All of those residents, 135 residents, are part of the Kenilworth Watch Group, and we adopted the Great Western Trail, which runs parallel to Kenilworth. We adopted it through DuPage County Transportation Department. And by the way, did you know that the Great Western Trail is County Route 55? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
That's an actual route. The Illinois Prairie Path is County Route 47. So County Route means that the Great Western Trail is managed by DuPage County. Villa Park helps clean it in terms of getting the snow off in the winter, cleaning certain areas, but they cannot, it's like a highway going down the street. They can't clean everything every week. So we as the Neighborhood Watch Group have adopted that, and we are going to clean up. The first one is April 22nd, Saturday, 9 a.m. at Cortese Park. Come join us. We'll give you a vest. We'll give you gloves. We'll protect you. We'll get you some water and help us clean it up. And it is a lot different from the Illinois Prairie Path because the Illinois Prairie Path runs through mostly residential borders. There's streets on both sides, Central and Park, on most of the route, but there's not a business that goes right up against the Illinois Prairie Path. The Great Western Trail, much, much different. All along Home Avenue, the village of Villa Park is right adjacent to the path. Down to Addison Road, there's businesses that come right up to the edge of it. And what happens with businesses? Customers. People go through there, they buy things. They open the package, they throw the package, the bag, or the wrapping, and it becomes litter that accumulates on the Great Western Trail. So we've got a big task to keep that area clean because lots and lots of people use that Great Western Trail. And it actually comes next to an area that's part of the VFW, and that is the parking lot. Goes all the way back, and there's a fence to the Great Western Trail. So we're going to work with the VFW to help keep that in order.
Just so that you know, the VFW property goes back to a line, roughly a line, in the front of the Jewel buildings.
Uh-huh.
It's a 400-foot lot.
Yeah.
It goes back that far.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is Jewel property.
Yeah. Well, there's discussion about that, and there's a fence all the way back right by the Great Western Trail, and certain people believe that it's VFW all the way. So we're going to have to figure that out, that they all go all the way to that fence, and that opening into the fence in the Great Western Trail.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out. The other thing is I've been doing a program called Cruisin' in Style. It's Cruisin' with a K, and that is a 30-minute program about car shows. We're having car shows coming up here in Villa Park starting June 18th, and it'll run through September 17th, every Sunday night, 4 to 8 or 4 to dusk. But Cruisin' in Style is all about car shows, and I had a chance, do you know Pawn Stars, the show on history? Rick Harrison is the star of the show. I had a chance to interview him. It's on the current broadcast. I interviewed him at World of Wheels show in Rosemont. Great interview. I loved getting to meet him. And that's on at 10 o'clock Friday nights, or on our YouTube channel, TV Villa Park Style. You'll check it there. And we're going to be doing a lot more with that program going forward. A new one every 2 weeks coming out. It's on our AT&T Uverse channel 99, and also locally in Villa Park channel 6, but area-wide channel 19 on Comcast out of Elmhurst to 64 communities. So having great fun with that. New outdoor facility at the VFW, right?
Say that again.
There's a new outdoor facility at the
VFW?
That's what's going on there?
That is our disabled vets lounge.
Yeah.
That they can roll right up. Now, of course, there is a ramp to go into the upper level, and a stairway elevator to go from the upper level to the lower level.
Uh-huh.
They're both not what we would like to say the best.
Yeah.
They
get the job done, though.
They do the job. The elevator is kind of slow, and the ramp goes to the back door.
Yeah.
And we have to have a thing that says, well, you have to call a number when you get there, and somebody will come and open that door, because there is no way to unlock it from the back.
Yeah, yeah.
And due to various utilities and things, we had planned on putting a nice ramp that would complement the building on the front, but there's too many utilities and lines coming in underneath.
Yeah, that makes it much more difficult. Hey, the parade's coming up too, isn't it? 4th of July parade?
The 4th of July parade is being planned.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a planning meeting, before, we have a post meeting. There's going to be a planning meeting Monday night.
Monday night, good. Well, we're going to try to get some car shows vehicles in that parade.
We would love to have that.
Yeah, some really nice cars. We talked about that in some of the car show planning meetings over at Cortese Park, that we ought to be in the parade so more people know about our car show and stuff. But that outdoor facility is something that's in a cooperation with Home Depot, right?
Home Depot has supplied all the material.
And that's the Oakbrook Terrace store that worked with you, right?
That's the Oakbrook Terrace store.
Yeah.
Their program, as a public relations ploy, is simply great, because they've done so much for us.
Yeah.
They built the initial ramp going in, and I think it was 5 or 6 years later, we had to we rebuilt it, and because it's wood and weather.
Yeah.
But they've supplied all the material for this one.
Yeah.
And
one of the things I want you to do, though, Sid, for me, is people may not know that on March 29th, a couple of years ago, there was a fire at the VFW.
That was May 29th.
May 29th. And Sid was in the building, in the office area, and had to be evacuated, rescued through a window from that office to this area now that is now covered with this roof off the side of the building. And that window has been blocked up.
Yeah, and that's a point of humor with us.
Yeah.
Because I can scream bloody murder saying, "My golly, you were going to name that window for me. I was going to have my name on that window. And how can I have a brick? I want a brick in Cortese Park, but not a name on the brick up there."
Yeah. Well, I bring that up so that should there ever be a problem again, you need another route. Because I know you spend a lot of time at the VFW.
Well,
what's going on at the
appreciate
VFW? Anything?
Well, of course we have a bingo every Tuesday.
Yeah. How much can you win at the bingo?
Right now, the big raffle is, I think it was it's over $6,600.
Wow.
$6,600 is the big one. Then we've got two others. One's up over 1,000, and one's up for
So they
600.
accumulate week by week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the bingo itself, they're all progressive. The raffles are all progressive. But the bingo itself, prizes are the maximum allowed by the state of Illinois. And people come in and they enjoy, they have a lot of fun up there. It's as much a gambling operation, it's more social than...
Yeah.
I can't really say that, but boy, it is very social.
Yeah.
Well, we have a nice menu of sandwiches and pie and all sorts of little goodies and pulled pork sometimes and beef,
I love pulled
sausages. As a menu, as a kitchen that people can eat. If they have a birthday or some particular special occasion, they can bring in their own stuff. And of course, we don't. I don't think it's legal, but we do it anyway. And that's just because it's fun to be there.
Yeah.
And
what about fish fries?
And the fish fry has been
it's
fantastic.
called something else, right?
Well.
Still called fish fry, or is it something else?
Oh no, I call it the Friday Night Feast.
Friday Night Feast, that's right.
And the fish is North Atlantic cod, and it's relatively fresh. It's because I think on the factory ships that catch it, it's flash frozen, and
Right on the ship, yeah.
right after out of the water for practical purposes, and we get it probably within. Well, they brag 10 days. I think we might be a little longer than that, but not much. But it comes out as a
fish
tasty
fry,
fish.
The feast night is also fish and burgers and other things, though, right?
We have pulled pork again.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have sloppy joes, sausages, shrimp, and again a lot of things that are good looking. Potato is a choice of chips, fries, or baked.
What else they got? There's another night or something like that. Thursday night or something, or Wednesday?
No, we discontinued that for a while.
Okay.
And
The wings
mostly
night.
because we have trouble getting enough volunteers.
Yeah. Well, that's always a problem. Volunteers is an issue. Well, I'll give you 2 more minutes. Sid, what do you got?
Well, this is going to go run a
minutes.
little longer. It might be, but
No, we're not
it's
going
a fun
2 minutes.
story.
That's it.
It's a fun story, and I'd just like to read it. It came off the internet some years ago, and it was about an old woman miner and a gunslinger, young gunslinger. And I'm going to read this to you, so bear with me. She walked up and tied her old mule to the hitching post. As she stood there brushing some of the dust from her face and her clothes, a young gunslinger stepped out of the saloon with a gun in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other. The young gunslinger looked at the old lady and laughed and said, "Hey, old woman, have you ever danced?" And the older woman looked at the gunslinger and said, "No, I never did dance, never really wanted to." A crowd had gathered as the gunslinger grinned and said, "Well, old lady, you old bag, you're going to dance now," and started shooting at the woman's feet. The old woman prospector, not wanting to get her toes blown off, started hopping around. Everybody was laughing. When his last bullet has been fired, the young gunslinger, still laughing, holstered his gun and turned around to go back into the saloon. The older woman turned back to her pack mule, pulled out a double-barrel shotgun, cocked both hammers. The loud clicks carried clearly through the desert air. The crowd stopped laughing immediately. The young gunslinger heard the sound too, and he turned around very slowly, and the silence was almost deafening. The crowd watched as the young gunslinger stared at the older woman and the large, gaping holes of those twin barrels. The barrels of the shotgun never wavered in the old lady's hands as she quietly, "Son, have you ever kissed a mule's butt?" The gunslinger swallowed hard and said, "No, ma'am, but I've always wanted to." Now, there are a few lessons here. that we could say, because stories like that have a moral. You'd never be too arrogant. And of all things, don't waste your ammunition. Whiskey makes you think you're smarter than you are. And always make sure you know who has the power. And finally, don't mess with older women. They didn't get old by being stupid. I just love a story with a happy ending, don't you? And with that, I think it's about time we're going to cut it off, and we'll have to all say, and for Al, I'll say, so long, everybody.